So I was going to ask you about that because I was when I said when I was laughing because right now I'm on vacation.
But you're working.
Right. And everyone's like, "Oh, let me leave you alone." I'm like, "Man, I'm at the beach. There's about 6 hours of I can only handle so much of the beach." And I was up at 5 o'clock fishing this morning, then went and worked out, spent a little time on the beach, and now I'm like, okay, I can do. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, man. I can only handle so much sun, anyways.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess you're just like, as humbly as possible. You're just a grinder. You're just born with it, or you see the urgency in life to do that. I always talk like Kyle, Jesse. We do the podcast for Bassmaster together, and we're trying to figure out this week because the 4th of July is on Thursday, which is my birthday, and then I'm going to try to take Friday, so I get 4 days. I'll get 4th of July Friday, and then the weekend, and he was taking off Wednesday, and so I was like, "Can we just do the podcast Wednesday?" And he's like, "I'll be off, but I'll be at my house. We can do it." And I was like, I'm trying to be better about honoring your time away because we're always going. But to know he would sacrifice an hour of his away time just like I would means that he's cut from the same cloth. So no, it's one of those deals where you just work. That's what we were made to do. It's biblical. We're supposed to work. It's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to always be fun. We're supposed to just do, especially as a father and a husband. So no, it's the time. Yeah. Time gets away from you, but man, you just gotta pick your points when you're present and when you're away. You want to be home. So you just got to work hard when you're here, make it worthwhile, do something, figure something out.
Well, so and they were trying to get me to, I got a buddy trying to do this whole podcast thing that wants me to do it. And, because I don't even, I don't even call myself a YouTuber or a podcaster or any of that stuff, right?
Just the guy who makes videos.
Yeah, just whatever, man. And so I was like, hey, man, look, I don't mind doing, I could do a podcast every day. The luxury of me being able to do one, I'm in this random room, that's my luxury. If I had to come in on a set and do it, I was like, look, man, I don't think I could promise that because fishing comes first. And what I mean by that is work wise. Like fishing comes first, and then Strike King I can always kind of do whenever. And then videos and podcasting always come second. Podcasting probably comes the last. But I mean, I don't, if I was 5 minutes away, I would do it. But man, if I had to drive somewhere to come into a studio to do that, I was like, man, I can't promise that. But I love doing them. But I don't want to do. It was funny because you text me. Don't feel bad about this, but you text me like, "Hey, what are we going to talk about?" Zona texts me, "What are we going to talk about?" Andrew Upshaw texts me, "What were we going to talk about?" And then most of the time, like, I'm like, "What do y'all?" I can't believe y'all are still texting me. What are we going to talk about? Dude, we can talk fishing for hours. Yeah. It doesn't really matter.
Well, sometimes with what my profession is, no one sees me as a fisherman anymore. So we're talking about others fishing, not necessarily the nitty gritty of it. So when I'm a guest, it's always work related. The only reason why I get called to be a guest or something is because of the people I work around, not because of what I bring, other than the ability to talk for hours on end without, taking a breath. But no, so that's why I'm like, we could talk about life. We could talk about fishing. And so I know you have a one-track mind, but it goes in a lot of places. So no, I just was like, hey, is he going to put my feet to the fire on something? Just like, I'm all good if you didn't either. Cause I'll just tell you the truth, or I'll tell you, I don't want to talk about it,
No, that's how I like, so I get, and I'm always open about this. Like I'm the same way. Like I'll talk about certain things. I've had a bunch of people ask me. I've had a bunch of. I don't have to talk about it right now because I did not plan on talking about this. But I've had a lot of people ask me comments about some Chris Zaldane thing, and I was going, yeah, I haven't seen it, and they're like, whatever, man, and they keep on like, come on, choose a side, and I'm like, like guys, I don't know if y'all realize this, man. I really do. If I'm not fishing, and I'm usually like, so when I get back off this vacation, I go straight to Toledo. I'm going to practice for a day or two, and then we got a Brandon Belt Championship for like 4 days. And then I leave like a day later and we go to ICAST. I'm sure you're going to ICAST, correct?
Ooh, no, no,
Oh,
no, no,
man.
no, 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 no,
Okay.
no. My best 2 ICAST experiences, the first time I went and the last time I
And
went.
the last time. Yeah. Yeah. So like I'll fish those days, and they're Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I fish so much, not so much, but usually when tournaments are going on. So I rarely ever see live. I'm very open about that. Every once in a while I'll get to see some live stuff, but almost never on the weekends. I never see
Day one at Smith.
Huh? Yeah, well, and even at Smith, I was in Dallas for my kids' tournament, and so usually if I'm not at fishing tournament, I'm at one of their tournaments, sports stuff. So I'll like click on for like 20 minutes might be the most I'll get to see of a day, and I'll kind of check on that stuff. But I just don't.
And then you see Instagram, and it keeps you informed. You're like, oh, yep, that's
That's what I see, and so I get a good judgment of. I take a lot of judgment off of stuff from that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. No, and there's a whole, plethora. Most of the people want your opinion, but they don't realize that most of content creators in the world don't consume content. They just make content for others to watch. They're not watching other people's content. They're getting on a plane to go do a podcast with someone else, and then they're going to go here and manage their investments over here, and they're going to go do this. They're not making content, posting it, and then watching every comment pop up, and they're watching everyone else's. So no, I don't expect you to see everything. And it's good because you might get the bad rep of making reaction videos to other people's opinions, and then that's who Todd Castledine is. That's not who you are. You are more valuable than responding to someone's opinion, because your opinion is valuable in its own right.
I read comments when I want to. And this is what I'm going to bring up with you today eventually. But I read comments, and I don't know if those are. I'll ask you like eventually, but I don't know what I read comments because I can sometimes get an idea of where everyone's going. However, then there's stuff I'll see something, and something doesn't look right to me, right? And so that's when I'll actually start making a phone call or two, because I don't really stay informed that much to a lot of things. I do have a pretty good circle that I could like call on if I really needed to. But I rarely don't. And to be honest with you, there's not much in the tournament world, and you'll know this, and you don't have to respond to this. I've talked to Zona about it too. There's not much in the tournament world that I haven't seen or done or don't understand what's going on, that I would say 99.9% of most people don't know what's going on. They're only looking at it from an outside in point of view. And I have to be very careful about I wouldn't say divulging it, but what sucks is I can't talk openly about that stuff because people don't want to, it's not even believe it. They have a very skewed outlook on what really goes on when it comes to certain fishermen, how things are done within the industry, Bassmaster itself. Like I understand a lot what's going on. And if you say something that they don't think is like, we're either hating on something or whatever, like sometimes the truth, they want to hear the truth, but then they hear it and then they're like, well, then now I'm going to make an excuse because of what I heard from the truth.
That's not my truth. Yeah.
And that's what sucks, is because I'm like, look, man, I've always said, you might not, the truth is the truth, right? It is what it is. Now you might call it hating. You might call it, oh, you like that guy too much. You hate that guy too much. I'm like, well, whatever, but it's still the truth. And sometimes they don't like to hear, they want to hear the truth, but when they hear it, they don't like it.
I always feel like when I look at the comments, which I do too much, Tommy always tells me, get out, stop watching, stop looking at it. Tommy's knows better, and I don't know better yet. I'm getting better, but it's like that, the lady who went viral, she's like works with Barstool now, but she was the lady on the plane who was like pointing and getting upset and was like, that person's not real. And she's like getting upset. Yeah. And it's like, everybody's like, what? I look at a lot of our comments and I'm like, that's not a real person. There's no way that they think that that's the correct thing. There's no way that's a real take, or that's a real thought out thing, or they do not really know the sport that they love. They don't fully grasp the aspects of it. And we, think about it so much that we can differentiate between fishing and tournament fishing when it's just fishing is everything, and you can differentiate it. So yeah, you might not like the way you're fishing, but we're not fun fishing. There are other ways to go catch a bass, but when you're competing, this is the way you have to do it to win right now. And do other people want to be doing other things? For sure. But that's what you do. I'm going to go be stubborn and throw a chatterbait all day long because I'm fun fishing and no one's watching. When there's a tournament on the line, you do what it takes to win. And people are like, that's a scoper. Or like, I do love the comments where they're like, Bassmaster, you're ruined
for me.
Oh yeah. Sorry. I'm the first one on the podcast to bring it up. It's one of those things where like, here's the spectrum. And just like with politics, I'm in the middle.
No, can't be in the middle. You gotta pick sides.
But I'm in the middle initially, but because one side is going so far crazy, it's making me look far right. The left is going so crazy. I look so far right when I've been in the middle. Everything's the graph has left me. So same thing with live scope, and those tournaments. I'm not an avid fan of it. I've seen more fun. I get excited watching, a glide bait get eaten under the surface or a top water. I love those. You want me to see Hackney with a jig? I love seeing those things. But I now look like a pro live scoper because I love my job and I love covering people catching more and bigger fish. I don't want a camera in the boat with 67th if he's flipping a jig. I want to see the leaders catch the most and biggest fish. So I look like a lover of it when it's really, dude, I just want to see winners win. And you talked about going fishing, and fishing allows you to do your job. I have said this before, and it's becoming more of a realization for me. I'm still a young man. I'll turn 31, later this week. And so I'm still young, but it's just like my 11th year working with bass, so I've been around for a while. A third of my life has been working for the organization. The other third was fishing for the organization. And so I've seen it change, and I didn't grow up fun fishing. Like Todd, my dad, I'm pretty sure back in 1993, convinced my mom to have a baby so he could have a tournament partner in the future, because that's what I did. I just literally started going fishing with my dad as his tournament partner. He's fishing team tournaments and it's just him in the boat. That's not going to fly. You got to have somebody else. So I started going along with him. Every day we'd go fishing. It wasn't let's try to go catch fish to fun fish. It's let's try to figure out the pattern for the tournament this weekend. And so people are like, you don't fish anymore. No, I don't. I never fell in love with fun fishing. I'm a competitor. I freaking love winning. I love competing. I'm the guy who, if you get in a fist fight with, I keep standing up, even though you're winning the fight. Cause I just want to I know I can do this, I know I can do tournament fishing.
Don't go fun fishing with me. It ain't that.
No, we're trying to go catch 5 of the biggest ones. And I'm not going to go catch 1 million fish if that's not the way to go catch the biggest ones. If it is, it is. And so I've always been how do we win? Checkers with my 2-year-old daughter. How do I win? That's what I want to do. And so sometimes I have to turn my competitiveness down. But in fishing, that's all that wires me. I want to win. I want to see people win. And we could compete against the fish all day long. But actually, I was thinking about it driving in today to work. Gone are the days where we're competing against the fish, in my opinion. Because it's now I can't go and compete against the fish and do what I want to go catch the fish that I think I need. You've always competed against other people, but people have rationalized it otherwise. You are now in 2024 for sure competing against the fishermen. You're not competing against the fish, because if you're doing something you think you can succeed at, someone's doing the thing that they will succeed at, and you're just going to lose. So you could have caught everything your pattern has for you. You're not competing against the fish. You're competing against the guys. And so that's always how I measured myself. I'm glad I fished against Patrick Walters in college, and Drew Cook and Jake Whitaker and all those guys. I'm so glad, because it gave me a bar to compare to know how I needed to get better.
See, so much there. And we'll get all into it. I've always looked at live scope to me was, I've always said the same thing. I haven't wavered on most of it. There's certain things that I'll not waver on, but I've always, so you got to realize too, is that I forget that I look at myself as just a tournament fisherman, right? And the YouTube thing is just something I picked up and I enjoy doing it and I like it and stuff and it's fun. But like I just assume everyone sees me as this tournament fisherman. And then I'll never forget that I was doing that Toyota Championship on Gunnersville, where I was leading after day one and now anyways the final day I was there and a guy comes up to me and I'm the last one off the dock. As the top 10 we're going up there and he goes, "Hey, Todd Castledine." And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Man, you're in this event?" And I was like, "Yeah, man." Like,
oh, bro, I need to fish more tournaments if he sees me as just a YouTube guy now.
I was going, I fish about 30 events a year. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in this event." And so it was just, it flipped on me all of a sudden. But I do YouTube and I do all that stuff and I try to keep the most level-headed thing possible. And I only can do it from my perspective. So I understand I don't fish the elites. I would say to a degree I choose not to fish professionally I've qualified for both. I've done a little bit on the tour. Obviously, I think I qualified last year. I qualify pretty much every year in FLW to go fish that deal.
To get the first batch of emails sent.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I actually do qualify. Like,
no, I know. That's why I said you get the first batch of emails sent.
Yeah, when it says, "Hey, you're supposed to be in the top 5," I'm in the top 5. And so,
sorry, that was an unnecessary shade. No, I've gotten one of those emails and I haven't fished in so long.
Oh, well, that's why I always think it's a total joke, but that's neither here nor there. But like, I try to keep a level-headed view on LiveScope. I look at it. I'm one of those guys that I'm going to open it all up. I'm going to look at everything from everyone's perspective. And I think I've always said that I think professional fishermen, I think one of their biggest flaw, and it's a giant flaw they have, is they only look at things from their point of view. And I think it's a giant mistake by most of them. I think a lot of them do it. I understand why they do it, but they get to that level and they forget not where they came from. That's not what I'm saying. But it's very hard for them to view it from other stuff. Well, I can view it from their level, and then I can view it from this fishing. I fish weekends. Like anyone that wants to go fish against me can go fish against me. I'll go fish on the weekend. That's all I do. And then I look at it a little bit from the YouTube, and then I will try to be as open as possible and look at it from just the guy who's like, "Man, I don't even have a boat. I fish off the bank." And so YouTube has kind of grounded me in that level that I get a lot of people asking questions and a lot of things. And I'm like, "Oh man, they're not even, I can do this whole thing on this graph and all this, all these different things. And y'all do it too, right?" And then some guys like
talk above your fans' heads at times. And so we when we're on FS1, we know to keep it
it's
simpler.
Not even above their heads. It's like, I don't own a boat. So you're over there talking about a graph and showing contour lines. And they're like, "I'm just trying to use this bait, whatever." So I see all that. And so I understand LiveScope. We've talked about this before. I grew up with almost, 8-cent worm bar. And I've always said my view on LiveScope has always been this, and I will never change. These are some things I'll never change. That if I was 19 years old, and I've always said that if I'm 19 years old right now and I wanted to start, and I've been fishing when I was 19 for quite a while, already won tournaments and all that stuff, but there was no way I'd be in the business 20 years from now. If I was 19 now, like I would not be a tournament fish. I would be doing something else because I wouldn't have made enough money to do it. I would have gotten beat by guys live scoping because I wouldn't have had it. I didn't. People are amazed because I'm like, "Hey, I didn't even own my first brand new boat till I was 30, and I won it." And
but see, I'll even disagree because you're not a quitter. Like it's the same thing when we changed the open formats. No, but like you have the innate. If something was lacking, if you sucked at a spinnerbait, you would have figured out a way to do it.
I wouldn't have won as many tournaments, Ronnie.
Yes, you would have gotten there though, because you're not going to just step. You would have gotten there.
Man, Ronnie, like we're talking.
Maybe I think too highly of you. I don't know. Me and you'll talk one day away from the camera, but I don't mind it. But the first Bassmaster,
I don't want to get into it, but the first Bassmaster Open I ever fished on Toledo Bend in 2010. If anyone I would want to talk to would be you, but in 2010, that was the last tournament I was ever going to fish in my life. That was it. That tournament, not the actual tournament of me doing good. I finished third in the event. That was the end of it, man. I was done. I kind of turned my life around at that point in time. That was a whole, I was always a Christian, but man, I just was kind of like I didn't want to like follow his lead. And man, you talk about him breaking me down. There were so many things. There was nothing in the world that could convince me of all the bad things that happened leading up to that event in one day, the day before the event. It was like you couldn't write that script. And I was going, well, I'm done. Like there's no money left. There's nothing. I got like everything's broken. It's the most. And then I finished third in the event, and I was on a boat that barely even ran, and it kind of changed everything. However, so maybe I would have made it. All I'm saying is that I wouldn't have. I don't know. It would have been hard on me fishing because when I was 19, all I had to do was go beat everyone with the rod and a reel. We didn't even remember when I was 19. We didn't even have. There was no side imaging. There was no. Yeah. There was GPS. Was like what? I mean, GPS was coming out a little bit later.
It was an option that you were selecting on a new boat. You're not a given. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was. I don't even know if it was out yet. So I mean, I'm just saying that would have. I look at it from. I can always go back to my 19-year-old self and go, man, that would have been tough because back then I just thought, man, all I had to go beat was the other guy. And I will say, and you don't have to agree with me, but like a lot of times now, man, it's beating. That's what scares me about live scoping is, man, it's becoming more technology reliant and less about the guy. Now I know it takes talent and all that stuff. I get it, but you can't sit there and say that technology, and that's what always scares me about live scope. It's not live scope today, it's live scope of tomorrow. And I was like, when will we get to a point where it's just who has the better technology can win? That's the only thing that scares me. There's a lot of things that scare me. That's the number one thing that scares me. That our fishing won't be the judge of the fisherman. At some point, I'm not saying now, I'm saying it's turning that way.
Well, I think that there's always a place. I've said it, I could call out the whole Elite Series roster and pick out guys, but there are guys who have made a living with their rod and reel, in past generations that have grasped the use of technology, and they will have the best of both worlds going forward.
That's how I feel.
I had it. Yeah. And so like, I still think the best is because you got to make decisions. And yes, it makes it a lot easier. Technology closes that gap, but like it's hard for me to just say that because there's always going to be something. Like you're going to have to be the best at something. And so right now, like for you to deny, not you, but like as an angler to deny technology and say, I'm not going to do it that way. You have to be the best at what you do shallow if you're going to deny that. John Cox can do that. Greg Hackney can do. I had a good conversation at the Classic this year with Greg on Tuesday. He was going to be a camera on day one of the Classic, so we did our Tuesday interviews with him before media day, and or before the meeting and stuff. And we talked for 8 minutes of the 30-minute interview about how he was saying I'm almost too good to give up that way of fishing. So my standings and results may not show that I'm too good, but I'm so good at still catching them my way that it's hard for me to just not do that anymore and do that. And so I was like 100%. So you may see Greg Hackney have a down year or two compared to his standards, but still good enough to make classics, but not maybe AOI or maybe not win as many events. But when he decides to dabble with it and the light bulb goes off Tuesday at practice and he says, I can catch him flipping, but I can catch him flipping deeper stumps that I can't see but I need my electronic. Dominate. The you follow open if Hackney was in it and flipping a jig on shallower cover that you can't see, He would have possibly dominated with his skill set and application of technology and understanding of it. And so it's that push and pull. And I always like to equate it to basketball. I am a huge basketball fan. If I ever left Bassmaster to broadcast any other sport, it would be to do basketball, because that was what I did in high school and I love it. And so I watch a lot of basketball. But it's the same thing as you can be a 7-foot paint player right now in the post. You can be the back to the basket guy that we know of the 90s, the Ewings, the Olajuwons, the Shaqs, all those guys that are huge names in the sport and history. You can be that now. You just have to be the absolute best one with your back to the basket, because the other 7-footers have been shooting jump shots and they're going to pull you away from the hoop and shoot a 3, and they're going to make 35% of them, and they're going to outnumber your 2-pointers because they're 7 feet and they can guard you. And so you're going to have to be 65%. Yeah. You're going to have to be buttoned up. You're going to have to be a 90% free throw shooter to maximize on all your opportunities. And it's just like
the Joker, and you get a guy like the Joker and he's doing it.
And he would be able to adapt and bang with the big guys, but he wouldn't be as high, in their minds back in the day. Mm-hmm. But we think about Steph Curry. If you think he couldn't shoot threes, and he's the one pulling up from half court, and now we have generations of people who value threes more than twos. That Jack Golke from Oakland, who stole the NCAA tournament limelight from Oakland, he shot like 3 2-pointers all year and 255 3-pointers. Like, we have players now, that's live scope. You had a guy flipping jigs. He's flipping a jig 255 times a day and casting off the bank 3. Now we have generations where they're casting 255 times off the bank, 3 up on the bank. It's just a change, and we're just dealing with those growing pains. We are the kid at night whose knees hurt because he's going through a growth spurt, and we just haven't had to do that in fishing. And so those Stetson Blaylocks, Brandon Cobbs, the Luke Palmers, Brock Mosleys, those are the guys who catch them in the dirt, that are young enough to still embrace technology, and the more they fight it, the more they're going to hold themselves back. But they have the ability to then. Kyle Welcher, one of the best junk fishermen in the dirt guys, spend an off season learning it, wins AOY. Like, just there's something about meshing them two to perfect.
It's not young either. Let me tell you this. I'm going to tell you what it is that people don't want to hear. Do you want to know why I put in? It wasn't this year. It was last year. I put in my time live scoping. Now, when I put it in, and I pretty much, if I go fishing, like if I was going to go tomorrow, 95% of the time I'm just going to go live scoping. Like, that's what I go do on my off time, is live scope. I rarely go do anything else. Now that's not saying a lot either, because 90% of the time I'm practicing for an event, and so
you're not fun fishing. You are figuring out a way that you'll catch them on Saturday. Yeah.
And so, but I did spend a whole bunch of time, a lot of days, if you want to call it in the off season, like anytime I go live scope. Now, the reason I did it is because it's not because I'm definitely not young, I guess, anymore, but I would say that too many guys got comfortable. Now, comfortable might say a different mean a lot to different people. Comfortable for me, I can't get comfortable because I don't have a revenue stream coming in. I don't have sponsor dollars coming in. Like, I have to go win money every year in tournaments. I always have since I was 19 years old. And all those people are like, "Oh, you can't win money." By golly, I've made more money in fishing every year since I was 19 than anything else I've ever done. Like, if you gave me a $60,000 job right now, I would say, okay, well, I still make more money fishing than I do. And I'm talking about, like, not just, expenses. No. When you take all that out, I'm going to make more money fishing than I would if I had someone pay me $60,000 for a job. I mean, I do work for Strike King, but I'm throwing a number out there.
For sure.
So I have to, and I started seeing me get beat. And now, getting beat, I get beat all the time. That's not a big deal. But I was getting beat by a way, like, if I go throw flip bushes, I don't flip bushes. That's a horrible one. But if I did, because you're never going to win on
the bees are up there.
Right. So if I was going to go fish the grass, and then I went and fished the grass and smashed on them, right? I'm like, this was enough to win any tournament. And then I look up and I'm 10 pounds behind. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
I gotta evolve. I gotta evolve. Yeah.
Right. And so you kind of brought up certain things like sight fish. And I'm like, well, as long as I've ever sight fished, I've always been able to win tournaments. Like my bad day sight fishing is a top 10. My good day wins it. I still think I'm right there. I don't think that's changed.
You got to just have 1 or 2 of your 5 be sight fishing because you got to go do something else now. You can't just do all 5 sight fishing. Yeah.
Oh, no, I can do all 5 sight fishing.
No, I'm saying like to win tournaments because someone's going to maybe have up the weights doing something else. Like you're great sight fishing, but now that has to be an accessory to your main game. It can't be the only thing to win that tournament. Yeah, like, you know, an early March tournament, you're going to have to go do something else too. You got to have.
Right.
Yeah.
So I did it because I don't have the luxury of waiting 2 years to see what's going to happen. I don't have that luxury. So I was like, oh, I can't wait. I have to go get as good as those guys instantly. And so I went out there and put in my time. So I don't feel sorry. And I don't feel sorry for any of those. You can call them young, old, whoever is fishing tournaments and wants to sit there and complain about it. You'll never hear me complain about that part of it. I'll go figure it out. Like I'm going to go do whatever I need to do to learn how to try to win tournaments. Doesn't mean I can, but I don't have that luxury of sitting back going and complaining about it. I complain about certain things. My biggest complaint is this, and you can disagree with me. No one will ever change my mind. And I've got arguments for days because I sit around driving around and I think about these things. So I'm sorry, no one's going to win on these arguments.
That's what some of these anglers are saying right now.
Get ready. And some of these anglers aren't going to like what I have to say. And I don't care. I've got the best argument in the world for it. Got thousands of them. The whole thing of if you took live scope away, right, from some of these guys, they wouldn't be as good. And I will stand on that. And I've been trying to make a video about it forever, but I'm like, it's true. It's true. And and anyone that goes against me, because you just made arguments for everything I just said about being true. And the reason it is you're like, well, wait a minute. You just said all those guys spend 95% of their time out there with live scope, not doing the other. You just said it.
Yeah.
So you can just
sit there I'm saying like, yeah, the new generation will, kids will walk in the gym and shoot a 3 instead of going and do layup lines. Yeah, 100%.
Okay. And so when someone sits there and goes, that's not true, you know, and then all of a sudden they show them catching a fish somewhere without live scope, and I just start to laugh. And I'm like, you do know about 9.6 million people in America can go catch a bass without using live scope. We've been doing it for 50 years. Catching a bass is not exactly rocket science at times. My kids catch them. I can take someone that's never made a cat and they can go catch 25 pounds with me and they've never caught a fish before. Throwing a spinnerbait out there around top water. I mean, come on, guys. Sometimes bass fishing is sometimes it's really hard to go catch one, but anyone can go throw a spinnerbait up along the bank. And if one's up there, it's liable to eat it. And so my point is there is a giant difference. You love basketball. You'll love this. I'll get to this. You're going to love this, Ron. You're going to love what I'm about to find out. I'm not saying they're not good fishermen, but to be at the top level of the elites and to go win an event is so mind-bogglingly higher than what everyone else really thinks. Like to go do that, not even to win an event. I'd say to make top 5 in Angler of the Year. You're so much better than everyone else in the country. It's not even close. It is, right? So I'll give those guys that. And you are like a 2-pounder away from being 10th place or a 4-pounder away from being 20th place. I mean, it's so incredibly hard how every single pound matters throughout an entire season. And I'm like, hey, look, that's all I'm saying is if you're trying to qualify for the elites and you fish 9 opens, and there's 18 days of fishing in there. And if you were like, well, live scope accounted for a 3-pounder every day, you're probably not going to make the elites at the end of the year if you took that 3-pounder away from all those guys. That's one. A lot of those guys caught 95% of their fish on live scope. And so I'm just going, hey, man, if you took that away from them, because that's all they've done, you can't sit there and go, oh, well, he would have just done this. And I'm like, well, but we don't know that because
I would have said, hey, give the best angler in the world before live scope, and they'll just do this. But we see them not doing that. Yeah.
And so
everyone negates to what's comfortable for sure. But I will say that we can't, this isn't like a subjective judge of who's good at fishing.
No.
We host tournaments and everyone runs out and they fish the same amount of time and they come back and we judge if you are the best fisherman based on where you finished that week.
Right.
And so when people are like, well, he's not good, brother, here's the set of rules. Here's your tackle box in your boat. Here's the playing field. Go out there for 8 hours. That determined that Taku was the best angler at Smith this week.
Correct.
Made all the right decisions. Justin Hamner finished 10th. Would have finished 7th if he didn't accidentally have a 6th fish in the live well and got a 2-pound penalty. So that's the fine line you were talking about. Justin got last out of the 10.
I know.
2-pound penalty, his own problem. Doing the small things right. He would have finished 7th. So it is just a fine line of managing everything.
Line, and that's all I'm saying is
you can say someone's win is a fluke when you look at the AOY, but when you see someone win and then you see someone make the classic, they're not bad fishermen.
They're not bad fishermen. I just say that if you took live scope away on some of them, I'm just telling you you can't. So I always say, like, if Hackney would agree, all these guys would agree too. Like, I made a living sight fishing. I have a lot. I've won a lot sight fishing, and I consider myself to be one of the very best sight fishermen just because of my record on it.
If they're on bet at Lake Norman, KJ Queen's dad's gonna get a top 3. Like that's what he's known for. Yeah.
But if you took sight, now I only get to sight fish like 2 months out of the year. But if you took sight fishing away from me in the springtime, I've won plenty of tournaments in the springtime without sight fishing. But not even close to, like, most of them have been sight fishing, and then a couple here and there without sight fishing. So I can catch them, but I would not near be as known if you took sight fishing away. I have no problem saying that in the springtime. Now, I've also had to go learn how to go catch them 10 months out of the year. I would bring up like a guy like Hackney or Biffle. If you took flipping away from them and said, y'all aren't allowed to flip anymore, Hackney's career wouldn't look the same. Now, I'm not saying he's not a bad fish. I'm just, it's okay.
You're taking someone's best thing off the. You're taking someone's 5-pounder out of their limit out, and you're only giving them the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th biggest fish. You can't. That's we're cherry picking there. Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't. But they hate when you say that.
I'm no, I know. Man, I know.
Live scoping is a technique. The difference between this technique and flipping is that.
The jig is $8.
Well, no, I say this. Hackney can only go flipping on certain lakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I mean,
there's going to be a time and a place for it. Yeah.
Right. Live scope is a technique that works 12 months out of the year on how about this? Way more lakes than you could go flipping on.
Yeah.
And so when you got something that works 12 months out
time of year, it's not time of year dependent. Yeah. But the baits are different.
Weather.
That's why I love the rookie class this year. Yeah, they may be glued to the screen like everyone wants to say and narrow them into that. I have seen them throw a jig. I've seen them throw glide baits, jerk baits, drop shots, Nico rigs. I've seen them do all kinds of things that we claimed was versatile back in the day. You became versatile because you got fortunate that you picked up the right rotations. These guys are now like, they're not biting a jig, and I see them looking at it. I've got to go to this. I've got to go to that. And so they've got to.
Live scope put a lot more rods on my deck.
Yeah, there's so many things. I've just learned so much. Like, this isn't like we're not going to debate here and like we're going to convince each other of one thing or another, or the fans are going to be totally enlightened. I hope they're enlightened, but it's just it's so interesting. Like, as we're talking about this, there's a YouTube comment on Bassmaster, since I run the channel, and everybody's finding out about that because I've said it a few times. And so everyone's like, what a piece of crap he is. And I'm like, you're just complaining about the wrong thing. But comment that says, my opinion is John Cox is the angler of the year for not using forward-facing sonar. He's my man, even if he's in last place. Much respect. That's not competition. We just created a generation of fans who applaud anglers for finishing last, and they're like, you did it the right way. The right way is, here's the rules, go catch them and win. That's the way. And I think it is crazy though that I wish we came up with the technology, but people are like, Bass is ruining the sport. And it's like, brother, we didn't make the technology. We didn't even tell the anglers they have to use it. They're just the ones who, you know, we didn't even done it. We have been using all year to evaluate so many different things. We are planning to do something about it very soon. And that will be announced, whether it's to the liking of people who want us to do more about it or less about it. We have had 2 hours every single week. I have wasted my life having meetings about this on what we're going to do in the future. And a lot of aspects,
Me and you had one.
Yeah, we did have, dude, for the viewers at home, this July 2nd, we're shooting this. And we talked like May 12th for 3 hours on the phone. I drove to every single sports store in Little Rock trying to find a swing for my swing set in the back for my daughter. And I still didn't find one. And me and Todd kept talking the whole time about this. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's just, we didn't create it. We're trying to do something about it. But we're not trying to cave one way or another. We're trying to use it and knowing that it's not going to be a final decision. Like, I don't want to cave to the, and I say cave, like to the live scope lovers who are like, don't do anything, don't touch it. And then the ones who hate it and they're like, get rid of it. If we're being honest, if you get rid of it out of 100 elite guys boats and 200 opens guys boats, is this going to be one of those gun collection things in a democratic city where they say, come drop your guns off? If people can come drop their transducers off if they're not fishing the opens or the elites, that's not going to happen. These lakes are still going to get pressured. Your local club tournament where the grassroots commenters are that want to just go fish tournaments with their kid at home, you're not going to win those because they're just still have it. Who's regulating those? So that's my thing. It's like, just because we say it's gone or it's not, that's not going to change state regulations, not going to change. But we can be the ones to shape it. And
you can do more. You can do more because you can do anything you want to as an organization. Now, when we talked, there were things that I didn't surprise. It's not that I didn't agree with you. I didn't, because it's not, I'm not trying, I don't agree I disagree with that guy's statement. I disagree with a lot of what comments because there's no thought within them, right? It's just
feelings. There's no thoughts, just feelings.
I'm not good on that. So I thought about what you said, and I've gone back and forth, and that's where I'd say that I'm closer to you now than what I once was. Now, if I had my little magic ball and I wanted to, or if I had my little tournament organization and I wanted to do it, with no repercussions whatsoever and how I did it.
Todd's got the nuke codes. He's got the button.
Yeah, I would just say we're going to do it this way, and I don't really care what anyone says. Yeah. And I would do it. Now, people would probably be surprised on what I would do, but I did think about this, going, okay, you're right. We are putting the best fishermen out there in the country, and there's a whole different side, because if you want to look at viewership, like because the viewership has to come into play at some point in time. Viewership comes into play on how I make a YouTube videos. I try not to make YouTube videos based on, and it sucks. Golly, it sucks on YouTube, because I make some of my best fishing stuff and it's not going to get looked at as much as if I do this other stupid other stuff, right? And it's what people really want. Anyway, I don't even get into that, right? But you kind of have to like feed into them a little bit because that's what they want. I don't like doing it, but I have to. I will say you put a bunch of fishermen out there without live scope. I'm not saying I still wouldn't do it. I'm just saying, but if you did, and then you had looked out there, like 400 people are out there fishing the next weekend, and all 400 of them are using live scope, but you just had a tournament on their lake where they're not. And then you're like, these are the best fishermen in the world. And then some guys are over there the next week and going, yeah, they caught 11 pounds. We're out there catching 22. Yeah, they're really good. And I was going, oh, that kind of sucks too. You know, like that doesn't look good. Because
our sport's all about perception in terms of who's the best fisher. It's all subjective. That's the scale everyone has it on. And so it's the same thing with the whole NBA of like, we played defense in the 90s. It was 77 to 78 at the end of the game. And now it's 130 to 120. These guys don't play defense. Yeah, and you could not make the rate of baskets that they make. They have to be so much better at this thing because they have to score that many to win. and then they'll play defense for 2 minutes to make sure the other team doesn't beat them. And it's like, it's just it's the same thing. You were holding them all game to a lower level. Here, the funnel is so much bigger. The tap is wide open, but now it's a rat race to get to 100 pounds quickest, to never be complacent on a body of water because I've got enough weight. No one this year has ever been on live and said, I think I have enough weight today. No, because true. You got to catch more every day. You got to catch more. And so it's just different. It hurts my heart because that's the thing. A 16-year-old kid in a high school tournament with his dad and his partner, and they catch 27 at Toledo, but the elites, it took 72 for 4 days to win because there was no technology. That doesn't do it justice well. It looks like I can go do what Greg Hackney's doing, and I can do it better. Nobody's saying I can go make three-pointers better than Steph Curry. And if they are, they're in the draft combine right now.
Yeah. So I've said this, Ronnie. This is okay. I was going to go somewhere else, but I've said this. This is what's – I hope no one gets – so I've said there is a threat to professional fishermen. And professional fishermen don't realize it's coming, and it scares me for them. Now, it doesn't bother me because I look at this stuff and someone's like, whatever, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Before I watched Bass, I used to like when Bassmaster Before Live came along, right? I was just watching for the entertainment value, and I'm like, how are they going? If I didn't know either, how are they catching them on Smith Lake, right? Because there was no live, right? So I wait for the TV show, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, they're all flipping a jig on boat docks. Or man, this guy's, what is he doing? Like I still to this day like love it when I see some random guy doing something, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Now, Joey Cifuentes not being in Anchor Bay at Lake St. Clair, and the other 9 in the top 10 were, and he wins it, and you're like, that guy did some way to, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah.
Yes. So most of the time it was never where they were at. It was because I didn't know these lakes when I was younger. It was just, what is this? Why is this guy throwing a buzzbait in February and everyone else? I'm like, what are you? This is crazy. Something like that. I don't know. I was always learning things about all that stuff, right? And I was learning how to do all that. I'm not saying, I was just scared. Like I said, if we're not fishing against the fish anymore, and we're fishing against other fishermen, because I would say technology has grown, made it more a little. We got to admit, technology. It's a lot more about technology.
Hey, say. I know what you're about to say. Say it. I agree.
If I'm a casual fan and I'm watching those guys and I go, well, I already know how to go catch 12 pounds on Smith Lake. I know how to catch 15 pounds on Smith Lake. I can just go out there and do this with my live scope. Why do I really need to watch them?
That's what the other 89 who didn't make the final day cut said too. They can catch them on Smith with live scope and they lost. Yeah.
Correct. But
we have to be better teachers this generation.
Teachers or if technology starts teaching you too much, or YouTube or anything, I'm just going, man, be careful, because you don't ever want the problem is when the guys out there in public can do exactly what you're doing. And if technology makes it easier that way for those guys too, I don't really have to go watch Taku catch them that way if I can kind of go do the same thing to a degree. I'm not saying we'll ever get to that point. I'm just saying that there is something to that. Sure. And that's what scared me about technology is if technology gets better than the fishermen, right? Because before I had to rely on Gerald Swindle or Hackney or those guys. Okay, why are they doing that? How are they doing that? Why are they making those decisions? All these different things. If I had to rely on them and I could learn from that, now I'm just like, well, I don't really need any of that. I just need to stare at my screen. And the fish is going to tell me, right? Because before I didn't know if I didn't even know if I was throwing around a fish. I would just have to go through 25 different baits till I figured out what worked. Now I'm like, okay, these don't work. That's the only thing, and I know we're far from that, sort of. But I kind of look at that as a weird little issue.
I think like the NBA cares about the sport of basketball, but they care about their league. They care about the viewership there. People who've wanted to turn it off for many reasons, and then we get the highest. Yeah. So the NBA one.
Are you scared? Are you sweating now? They're like, oh, Todd, don't even bring that up. I gotta admit, like there's a game on tonight and we're watching it. My wife is all in. She's never watched a game of basketball, but we're all sports fans, and I'll be honest with you, I'm all in.
I've watched Caitlin Clark. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, me too.
Now, I will say when I played at high school basketball, I hated watching the girls play before us because it would just drive me nuts, and then it would get me off my game. My game wasn't even that great. It was just for the 4 minutes the coach trusts me, my game was going to be off. But
you would think they would care about their league.
It's
they're talking about we're talking about our own league right
now. Caitlin Clark is LiveScope. She has taken this by storm that so many people are controversial one way or another on it, and until there comes to a conclusion, she's actually all that in a bag of chips, then people are going to consistently hate until then. But I'll say this. So NBA cares about basketball as a whole, but they care about their league and the way it looks and the product that they're putting on the floor. But college basketball has 2 20-minute quarters instead of 4 12-minute quarters. High school basketball has 4 8-minute quarters. None of the other leagues to get to the NBA play under the same rules as the top level. So, but we in fishing, Bassmaster has to care about the entire sport, and everyone expects us to bring the elites down to the level that everyone else is having to compete at, whether it's financially, blah, 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 all of those different aspects of it. They want us to bring the elites down, but that, like you said, makes the stars less bright. It makes those guys look attainable when I want them to be like, I don't know if I could do that. Yes, LiveScope's effective. I don't know if I can go and hover over 230 feet of water and do what Robert G did this week to almost win. Like to see Taku do those things. It's a different way of fishing, but if we dumb it down to the level of entry level where it's fully accessible, because it is fully accessible now, but there's always other barriers to sports. I'm not 6'6" and athletic. I'm probably not going to play in college. I'm probably not going to go to the NBA. There's my barrier physically. Now the fishing is cost. The one big barrier that fishing has had that is gone or going away is that guy is 30 years older than me. So he has fished more and knows a lot more secrets and has the knowledge. And I can't compete until I fish for 30 years.
Right when I finally get to that age.
I know exactly. It gets level, but that's the thing. There. The elites have actually been very unfair to rookies, second year, third year players for years. Now it's finally level and everyone has a problem with it. But we can see rookies go into other leagues and take over. Bijan Robinson in the NFL, LeBron when he's a rookie. These guys are all-stars. These guys are great. And fishing's been the only sport where it's an outlier and you're like, oh my gosh, they're doing well. Well, now these guys have had to go through a similar 9-event format and they are brutally tested. And instead of them finally getting tested in a 9-event format on the Elite Series and getting beat their first year, they took their licks last year in the Opens or the year before, and they now are prepared for that. They know I'm about to die in this tournament.
I've always thought that was the right way to do it.
And so I think that's the biggest thing is like I'm seeing us try things in other sports to make it bigger and better and then have to adapt. And they brought the kickoffs for the NFL. No more kickoffs. Okay, we learned some info about concussions and we learned about what we need to do. Let's install them and not have it the full length of the field. It's going to be half the field. And they bring it back into the game. Just because if we make a ruling for or against LiveScope this year or this technology doesn't mean it's going to be that way forever. It's going to be samples of, okay, we need to adjust now. Like we're already thinking about what we can adjust the Opens to make that even better or to adjust the Elites to make it better as we're finally implementing what we've been doing. So it's like as soon as you implement something new, you're not sitting back and watching it. You are, and you're also getting to work on the next thing. That's why I love where I work at JM. So JM Associates here in Little Rock, we're always having conversations about what's next, even if we think we're the best live broadcast for fishing out there. And so I told Chase Anderson this last fall when we were talking about the way we ended the smallmouth swing last year, how everyone was frustrated with it. Is this going to be what fishing is? We don't know. Do we ban it? How do we take it? And I told Chase, I said, we got away, and I'll be completely honest. We have still tried to teach Zona, Davey, Tommy. I'm taking myself out of it. They taught me for years, and now I joined the crew, and we're still trying to teach people, but the effort of the leagues was entertainment. It switched to entertainment. As soon as MLF came and the split happened, we went to entertainment. We got to catch the biggest fish on the best lakes at the best time of year, and we're competing to show who is more fun to do. And we did less teaching. And I looked at Chase and I told him on the phone, I said, this is the way I see it. This has been an entertainment thing. This is we show a fish catch and we show a next fish catch and we show a fish catch. We don't pause to teach. I said live scope will be our chance to pause to teach. So we've been taking the feeds. We've been routing the feeds of an angler, syncing them up and watching them happen live so we can see the way they react. I take that clip immediately as soon as I get it and I put it at the screen of knowledge and I show you he made a pinpoint cast 90 feet out and it drops down. And right before it gets to the fish, he jerks his rod and the bait flutters and they all come after it. He could have hovered it. He could have let it fall past him. He could have swam it over their head. But he figured out in practice, which we don't get to see, the cadence. And he explained that when he sees a bait fish doing this on the graph, he saw bait balls flutter. They didn't just cruise. They made big jumps. Like, that's the teaching. And so we've been trying to do that this year. I got so excited at Smith. I love spotted bass. And we had so many good feeds of guys' electronics. I was like, our smallmouth swing is going to be fun. If we can show that and do that,
well,
it's going to be more. It's going to be more fun than it was last year.
Okay, so
it's going to get more fun.
And I use Bassmaster as my hey, I'm not them, because I always tell everyone Bassmaster can only do one thing. When you watch Bassmaster, don't get mad at me. Don't get mad, but you just said it and it's true. I said when you watch Bassmaster, it's like opening up a book. And you to the halfway mark and you read the last half. When you watch one of my YouTube videos when I go to a lake,
because we don't see their fishing, the practice.
Correct. And yeah. I said, so I show from the minute me loading the boat from day one of practice, when I do some of those series, I'm like, that's what I'm showing. I'm showing y'all how I got to here. When you watch Taku and it's day 3, right? I mean, if you're wanting to learn,
he just shortcuts your
you just missed it all, and it's not y'all's fault. It's no one's fault. Hey, I'm just saying that's my take on why I'm like, hey, watch one of my videos, because I'm going to show y'all from the beginning of how
that's why we started doing the unfilters. I don't know if you've seen that on Bassmaster YouTube. We did an unfilter with Greg Hackney at Seminole where we took every clip of his day 3 or day 4. I don't ever want to do the winter. We do enough about the winter. So we did the unfiltered of his whole day at Seminole. It was an hour and 40 minutes of every recorded clip as he caught them, as he didn't catch them. The only thing we did was put up fonts, fish number 4, fish number 5, so that you can keep track of the whole day. And people love that. I'm scared a little bit of people's judgment if we did a full live scope. But I think if we put the electronics feed with that, it would bridge the gap on teaching, because it is like when Robert G says, yeah, I went down to the dam and I put my trolling motor in the water and I panned around and did it. He also realized he did it in 4 other areas on the lake at Smith. And he says to Davey, after a couple of days of practice, I really only had confidence in this area to win, not to catch fish, to win, because it's too deep and there's big striper, and the striper will eat smaller spotted bass. So the only spots around here are going to be the bigger ones. So I'm catching 2.5s every time. I don't catch the ones. I'm catching 2.5. And I'm like, people might be like, oh, he just put his trolling motor down. I just learned. I learned. You know, I even said coming into it, we can almost predict what's going to happen. Like just knowing Hartwell and Lanier, I was like, somebody's going to catch. I almost called it too. I said to Kyle Jesse, big bass at Smith is going to be a 5'10" spotted bass. It was a freaking 5'12" spotted bass. I was so close.
I picked Taku, by the way.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Good. I sucked. I picked Trey McKinney on Drain the Lake. His first tournament. That
I had Trey in Taku, and then I had Justin Atkins.
Yeah, Atkins. We almost put him on camera day 1. We were going to do it probably for Champlain instead, but I was like, which one do you want, Smith or Champlain? And
I went all live scopers, but when Andrew says, hey, who do you want to win, or who do you choose to win? I was like, man, I think if a guy can do it, I was like, I picked like a Christie, or I said someone that can go down the bank and do this. And it was like day 1, you got Hunter and Steve. And I'm like, look, I've been there before.
It's 4 days. It's a long time to do that.
Well,
That's a long
so
time.
I made a video like yesterday talking about all that, about how I was at Smith Lake. I showed what I did in the opens there, and I mean, it was the exact same thing Hunter was doing. And I said the problem is you get them to blow up and miss, and you there's windows of when you can do it, and I would hear little bits of little stuff I heard because I didn't get to watch much of it, but I heard Hunter going. He's like, man, yeah, I've gone 2 hours without it. And I'm like, yeah, that's some of the issues you run into that. Now, I want to throw this at you. So I said, what would I do if it was me? And I have no repercussions of any of this, right? I don't have to answer anybody. I agree. I said somewhere along the lines too of the learning and the entertainment. And there's a fine line between the two. And then you can throw drama in there because for some reason now drama might be put up higher than entertainment or learning. Now, I've always said be careful about getting too much drama because if everyone wants drama, like fishing still has to be about fishing. If you ever lose that, it's worthless. I mean, I don't know what you have after that. So fishing still has to be the number one thing. You just have to figure out how to do all this other stuff. If it was me, and I was like, all right, I have my luxury to do whatever I want to do. How many events y'all have this year? How many events y'all have next year?
It's 9 regular season elite events, or all of them.
Minus the classic. Just
9 elites. 9 elites.
I would have, like, if it was me, I'd have 5. I'd have at least 4 you can't use live scope at all. And I don't care what anyone would say. I'm like, I don't really care. And I might go every other tournament. It really doesn't matter. Andrew told me, and I there's a good reason. I'm just saying for me.
For sure.
And Andrew was like, dude, what if they went into a smallmouth lake?
Remember, we are not in God's world. We are in Todd's world right now.
Todd's world.
Yes, Todd's world. Yes, go.
My world. If Andrew was like, dude, what if they went to a smallmouth lake and told them they weren't allowed to weigh in smallmouth without live scope and made them all go largemouth bass fishing on one of the, like, Champlain or something? And I'm like, whoa. And then I started thinking about it. And I was like, I guess, but Andrew, and he was like, well, dude, wouldn't that be entertaining and awesome? And you made a point about learning. And that's the only thing about, I know we taught Smith Lake was great for teaching everyone about live scope. But it also, if sometimes when you get live scope and you get 10 live scopers, right, you will never have an event where you have 10 guys all throwing one bait, or not one bait, but like one technique. Rarely will you, like, you get, without live scope, you get a lot of variations. I would say Wheeler was like that, right? You got guys doing different things, which brings up a variety, which is what I like. Because I'll be honest with you, when I looked, everyone picked their poison and which one rises to the top. Right. So when Toledo came around, and I care way more about lakes that I go to, that I've been to before, than ones I haven't. Just Todd's world. And I saw everyone doing what they were doing at Toledo, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've been there, done that. Like I know that's how to go catch them, like whatever, and I'll be the first one to turn it off. When I see something I haven't seen, I'm like, oh, I better watch that. I would say that if you, in my opinion, if you did that, it would have still the same learning stuff, because if you had all these guys going to Champlain and all of them were trying to go catch largemouth, and they'd be talking about how, yeah, I can go catch all these smallmouth, but I haven't to catch these largemouth, and this is what I did, and you had guys doing different things, and I will say that YouTube has shown me that we all think some of these guys want to go fish tournaments, but a lot of them don't really care. They're just trying to learn how to fish. And you could go throw a video on YouTube talking about a glide bait and get 400,000 views because they just want to watch a guy catch him on a glide bait. And so Steve Kennedy, if Steve had just gone into this whole thing about glide bait and then showing all that, like, a lot of people would have just watched that and could care less about the tournament. And I'm sorry, but it's true. But it wouldn't have mattered. They would have been watching Steve Kennedy throw a glide bait and explain it in the teaching aspect of it. I just think sometimes
And there's sometimes we're not Bass University. We're still the Elite Series tournament. The tournament goes on. Yeah.
I'm saying for me though.
No. I get it.
You could. There's a possibility of trying to gather it all in one thing. I'm saying you could do it. You're not doing it on purpose, but you're kind of manipulating it in a way that's going to create that regardless. And at the end of the day, if you set the rules and they got to follow them, remember, we're still setting the rules.
Well, I know. Oh, yes.
We're still setting the rules because nowhere in actual fishing, I'm sorry, I can use 5 rods if I want to. I can use live bait if I want to. I can do a lot of things that don't have to follow tournament rules and actual just the laws of fishing. Like the laws of fishing will allow me to do troll. They allow me to do a whole bunch of things that tournaments don't. So I'm just saying is they could say like, well, no, tournaments have the ability to manipulate anything they want to. We had a tournament at home, the TTOs, and they allow you to keep spotted bass, like any size spotted bass.
I talked about Smith was like that. Smith always had an under. You'd see people bringing in 6-inch spots to fill out their limit because they got 4 bites and they're like, I'm about to not have a limit. And you snag one on a crankbait and you're like, this little fella he's a keeper. And he's a keeper. It's this big.
It's this big. And I was going, and as tournament fishermen, when we fished that, we all loved it. We were all like, I love that rule because like, is it going to help you win it? It doesn't really matter. It was like, it was within the rules. We fished tournaments back in the day that used to be a 4-fish deal. And then they had this like side pot for trash fish on Livingston. By golly, it was awesome.
Dude, like, my first ever check was because I caught a flathead and Fisher's a Min and I got the trash fish side pot.
There you go. Now, I'm not saying bring along trash fish in the elites. Okay, my world's not saying that. But it would be, I'm just saying, like, we do manipulate things within tournament organizations to fit how we want to do them. I'm saying if I had a chance, I would try it.
And I'll say there's a lot of, in Todd's world, we have higher payouts and we answer to no 100%. One. But in Bass's world, we answer to hosts that we bring in things, the viewerships. And I explained it to somebody who said, what if you just did every other event, no live scope? And I said, so Toledo, it takes 70 pounds to win for 4 days. And Fork, we go there and it's 131 pounds. Who the heck is driving past Fork to go to Toledo?
Right.
Manny, Louisiana is now mad at us because we just showed their lake at a bad time of the year on its worst 4 days.
No one cares about that though, Ronnie.
I know. Well, that's how
I know. No one cares.
I will say this. So we went through a live scope. We went through a live scope fest at Toledo Bend. The first event of the season, we kick it off and it's like, I mean, I've never seen, I went down. So this is Todd. This is how much I love the game. Okay. I'm an idiot. I drove all the way down to Toledo Bend Wednesday morning. I got there and I was there for the boat inspection. I plugged in this little cord in this box into all the graphs that I could to make sure they were compatible for live so we could maybe plug in and show and teach. And then I drove 5 hours back home and did live the next 4 days to try to get answers. So we see live scope play out the way it does at Toledo. And you see guys, talk about all the knowledge that I've learned is down the drain because I caught 12 pounds a day at Toledo and missed the cut. You were never making the cut at Toledo with 12 pounds a day. Never doing that, whether it was live scope or not. It's just now you're 70th or 85th instead of 60th. And so I said, sorry, like you just didn't do your job and catch enough weight to make the cut anytime. That's not satisfactory at all. So what we did was the next week at Fork, day 1, what do we want? We want a palate cleanse. We don't want to see live scopers. So I put 4 guys that we knew were going to be sight fishing or most likely would be sight fishing on day 1 at Fork. And everyone in the comments is like, look at Bass. They know they're doing wrong by the live scope. So they're feeding us this sight fisherman and they're in 60th in the tournament. Show us the leaders. You just didn't want to see the leaders last week. And so then after Fork, I said, you know what? I didn't say screw them because that's not true. We care. I care. I look at all the comments because I care about this sport, but it was like, we don't have to bow. We can figure out a way to do this to go forward. It's not left. It's not right. It's somewhere in the middle. And then in a year or two, it'll be somewhere in the middle of that middle. Right. And we will figure it out. And whether people want to bring up A-Rig or other things, Some of those were knee jerk, but I do remember the initial poll for the Elite Series for the A-Rig, 70% or something like that did not want it. And so it was majority and it got banned. Last year's poll, no matter what any pro tells you, last year's poll, it was not majority against it. If anything, it was more majority for keeping it as it is or limit it. And it was much lower for the other third. There's 3 options: do nothing, limit it, do everything, and ban it. And I tell you that everyone's like, well, no one likes it. Not based on the survey we did, I promise you. And so that's hard for us to say.
Of what
like last off season, what was the vibe?
The professional fishermen or the
people? Yeah, the professional fishermen. Yes, but then when you see fishermen at the top level lose and then complain about it and say that most of the elites don't like it, that's not what the survey said. When we asked for feedback and gathered it. And so it's one of those things that's difficult because your feelings can change week to week. We're going through a change at our church. We lost our pastor the weekend after Easter. And so what is that? July 2nd right now, weekend after Easter's like beginning of May. We've gone 2 straight months with, step-in pastors. And church has been weird. You ask me before we lose our pastor, my thoughts, it was hopeful. I appreciate him sharing the word and preaching from the Bible every single Sunday. And I trust what he's saying is from the word because I'm reading it as well and I'm learning. And then if you polled me now, we don't have that consistency there. And so everyone's allowed to make an opinion change. You might have said something in November and after Toledo, you had a different thought. I thought Drew Benton was very, and I hate to call a grown man mature, like I'm talking down, but like you could see how he's one of the best sight fishermen in the world that fishes tournaments. Your uncle who doesn't fish tournaments doesn't count. The ones who show up and put their money on the line and sight fish and trust it, they're the ones who count. So Drew was one of the best at that. And the first 2 events of the year were not that. And he maybe didn't have great finishes and was frustrated probably. And then at the Florida swing, or maybe it was Murray, he said on stage that he was coming around. He was happy again. And it wasn't because he got his way. It was he started to figure out his game and where he could pick his parts and pick his points. And so I was like, man, no one made him say that. There was no gun to his head. You better be kind to this on stage. It was more of like, maybe my initial harsh stance, it's not that. It's somewhere over here a little bit. And so I'm proud of the ones who are adjusting. Like Steve Kennedy provided us the greatest visuals we've had in an elite lately with those glide bait fish that he caught. Okay, did you see those clips? Absolutely awesome wolf packs coming up and 6 or 7 3-pounders fighting over it. Earlier that day, that same exact day that he catches 2 3+ pound spots on a glide bait and wolf packs, that morning he started his limit drop shotting or throwing a minnow for active target 2 fish in a creek. And he catches one, and it's a 1.5 pounder that's shot up through a school, and he missed it. And then more of them shot up, and he caught one. Yeah, and he said, "Why would anyone want to ban this? I'm getting my butt beat by kids by the guys doing this, and I just want to learn it." And then later we see him glide baiting, and I was very proud for someone who could just stick to his guns and do whatever he wants and ride off in the he's already bucked the sponsorship trend. He could buck this too if he wanted to, but he's trying. And he sees the value, and he's fearful for the one thing I don't want the every other live scope thing. Our records, as a stat guy that keeps records, and our records would be trashed, null and void. And most of the time, history and records are the only reason why sports leagues have value. Here's the precedent that's been set. This guy did a momentous thing and broke a record. That's why the Trey McKinney at Fork was almost like the biggest thing in the sport in the world, was because he almost broke the all-time record. That's if we didn't have that record, or if we're gonna have a non-live scope record, and then we're gonna have live scope records, and we're gonna keep track of which events win.
No, it is. I'm telling you right now.
People will, but I will never.
There will be 100%. I promise you, there will be an asterisk. There will be an asterisk, whether you want to call, like, I'm not saying the steroid era or whatever, because I mean that was cheating. This isn't. But well, if you ask some people, what I'm saying is, I think there will be an asterisk somewhere along the way.
It's like a BCAD thing, when live scopes happen and when live scope, you know, like before.
Well, I just think maybe there'll be a year in there where it's like, look at like the modern area of basketball, baseball, whatever, like 3-point line, when the 3-point line came along, whatever it might be. I think there will be an asterisk moving forward from live scope. I think it's
well, everything's progressed.
That's not a negative thing. I'm just saying I think more records. I'm not saying more records will fall, because I think what the crazy part about it is this is what people don't understand, is that our lakes aren't, as a whole, are aging. People are so uninformed about.
It's hard to comprehend that for sure.
I'm just like, guys, man. I get into videos with people all the time about all the stupidest thing. I got into it with a bunch of. I didn't realize there was this like crazy cult fork people, these fork crazies, and I was bad mouthing the slot, joking, like semi joking, because we had to go fish the tournament over there for
inconvenient. Yes, it's inconvenient.
And I dogged it.
And your title and thumbnail didn't help.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, yeah, who cares? You know, it was on fork, whatever. And there's some people that came out of the woodwork on that. And of course, I don't know how they don't know me, that you don't see me get too riled up about, like, I don't get riled up about stuff like that.
You made me watch an 18-minute video the other day
of catching little ones.
No, of you faking drama about oh my gosh, can you believe what Bassmaster allowed them to do they were using their graph and I was like, oh my God, Todd, I just watched this whole thing. I was like, what did we let them do? And Todd was like,
well, because of all the stupid comments that they put on there. And I'm like,
my dad sent me a video the other day from RB, our old boy, our Randy. And he said, what do you think about this? And I was like, I don't give that 2 seconds of my time.
No,
and I said, but I will for you. I will watch it for you, Dad. Well, but I would never advise giving that, you know.
But what you got to realize is that I get it all the time in my videos, not from him, just from like this fork thing. And so it was a fork thing, and and a lot of it was on me going, and I'm like, y'all do realize that, look at what I'm doing. I'm shaking off 6-pounders in the tournament while Russell and me are right here trying to catch a 12-incher. And I'm like, when I started fishing, this is not what I envisioned fishing to be. That's all I said. That's all I was saying. I was like, you know how stupid this is? That there's 6-pounders right here. In my entire life, I've been like, catch the 6-pounder. And instead, I'm shaking it off going, that's worthless. But hey, watch me catch this 12-incher. I don't care who you are. That was stupid. We felt dumb, and we fished the tournament. We paid our money.
Did you high five? Do you high five when you catch the 12-incher or what?
Oh no, I was joking, like, yes, put him in the box. Like I was like over, like I forgot I was even on camera. Like I forgot that I had my GoPro running. We were joking around about it all day long, because of course we're not getting the net out or anything. We're not.
Oh, you should have.
Yeah, we're just like, I was like, can you catch that thing so we can hurry up? And bloop, and we catch spinning rodding up this little 12-incher, and then you catch a 2.5-pounder. It's too big, and so now you catch one under that, and you're having like, is it under 15? Is it under 6? Yes, yeah, that's a freaking big one, dude. Put him in the box, man. Did he go 15 at least?
The biggest of the small ones. Let's go.
The biggest of the small ones. It was like this is ridiculous that we're having to do that. And then everyone in the tournament I talked to afterwards, like, yeah. And there's a certain elite angler that is very good, that happens to fish fork. And I called him up, and he was like, oh, yeah, dude, it's horrible when you have to go do that. It's horrible. And I'm like, yeah. So most of us get it. Those fork people.
Wait, you called Taku?
Yeah. Yeah. Those fork people are just crazy about that stuff. And they want their little lake and their little slot, and they think that helps. And I'm like,
there are some giants in that lake, though, but and you have to say that, like, I have to believe that it helped. Sharon Harris in North Carolina is the same thing.
No. We got slot lakes all around Texas. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. And then I bring up all these things. I'm like, okay, well, Toledo, they caught like freaking 58 over 10-pounders this past year. Has anyone ever been to OH Ivy? I don't remember there being a slot out there. I'm like, those lakes are good. Conroe has some of the most giant fish in the world, and everything they try to do is possibly kill those fish. Like, the Conroe organization, like they want to kill all the grass. They want to they want to do everything to hurt fishing on Conroe, and it produces big ones because Conroe's a good lake. Like good lakes are good lakes for a reason.
The lake's got genes, yeah.
But then Fork, they throw in these freaking monster genetic fish in there. That's what helps Fork. Just keep on stocking them with giant genetic genes. Does the slot help? Dude, there's not a bunch of guys out there keeping fish left and right. I mean, it would still be good. It doesn't matter. You'll never they live in their own little bubble and they don't know, and they've never actually been outside and seen the real world and go, hey man, here's other lakes that are just as good. What about all these other slot lakes that are horrible? You can't catch one over 6 pounds and it's all a slot lake. And I'm like, yeah, how come it's not help? You can't have it one way and then it doesn't work over there either. It's different. I'm like, yeah, it is different. That's the point. That not one thing is making these lakes better. 99% of the time, it's a good lake. O.H. Ivy is phenomenal right now. It doesn't matter what you do to that lake; it's good.
Yeah, it's just also so remote. I don't even think does Google Earth give you a road to take there, or do you have to just look at signs when you get close?
Have you been there? Do you know what it's like on a weekday?
Oh no, now I know what it's like now, but yes, yeah. But for years,
it wasn't any good because, like all of those West Texas lakes, when they freaking go through those droughts forever and they're down, dude, put Lake Fork, make Lake Fork 15-foot low for 8 years, and then pop it back up. Lake Fork, however good it is now, it will be twice as good. That's how you get lakes.
Amistad and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, all those lakes. Well, Amistad and them are kind of different because of something's going on over there because of water quality and what goes on with. We share the border. There's a whole bunch of chemicals. I think there's a bunch of stuff going on and that we can't regulate on the Mexico side.
Yeah, it's crazy. So
all right. Well, I'm interested to see what y'all do next year for the opens and for the elites. I mean, we still got a lot of. How many tournaments we got left this year? Y'all got left
4 opens, 2 elites.
Then y'all go to St. Clair. They go to St. Clair. I know
St. Clair in July. So the week after the 4th, or I guess so next week. Yeah, next weekend. So a week and a half from now. Yep.
Okay.
It ends the Saturday, and then ICAST is the next week, and then we do Champlain, St. Lawrence, and Leech Lake. 2 elites and an open back to back in August. September's Mississippi River. October is Hartwell, and the opens are done there. But yeah, no, it's fun. I love our community of fans. I been disappointed in the way things have been received, or the mean and nasty way of people chalking up these young anglers. Like, I can't help the year I was born. I can't help. Those are things you can't help. And I just came into the sport, and I'm going to say no to stuff because I think it's no, you just can't do that. And so I'd be doing the young and old fight that we've been doing forever. You know, it's the and I'll say this. Let's clear it up. It doesn't take $30,000 to $40,000 to $50,000 in electronics to compete on the Elite Series. It does not. No. Just because there's no one who has 40,000. There's only a few that have 30,000. Everyone else is 20,000 and below, or 25 or whatever, like in the 20s and below. There's only 1 or 2 or 3 setups that are crazy cost-wise. And all you need is one graph up front. And like Patrick Walters has been dog whipping the Elite Series overall. He may not win AOY and win every tournament, but overall been winning a lot of money with one transducer and one graph up front. The others are accessories. It's distraction for the fans. You don't need that. You just need one graph up front if you really wanted to, and have one deal. You can have perspective, you can have 360, or you can have one and do that and not say I'm without because it's 50,000. No one's making it's $5,000, and that's what every graph is running for these days anyways. If you're putting a graph on there, put the one that you think helps you catch fish. And so that's the hardest thing is like, I got the spreadsheet that shows AOY positioning and it shows cost of graphs. Like, I have it.
But listen, there's always been, and this is the part that I have really good friends too, that they don't speak on this. They let me speak because they can't speak because
I
they
shouldn't
want
have
to.
even said the L word earlier. It was just that I just mentioned
Well,
it.
I
And
was
then
going to
we
bring it
just
up
did it.
anyways.
Okay.
But I don't ever like. I can go every once in a while. Some guy will get on there and be like, "Oh, look what you have, Todd," and I'm like, and then someone from back in the day will go, "Man,
Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah.
I drew this guy when he was 28 years old out of a 12-foot skeeter. I don't even know if it would get back. He did this, this, and this." And I'm like, yeah, be careful. Because I spent not 1, 2, 3 years. Like I can show you, I'll take a picture of the boat I was in when I qualified for the elites. There's always been the haves and the have-nots in fishing. There will always be, and I don't ever mind talking on it. I could care less if someone doesn't like it. I'm like, look, man, there's 20-year-olds that in the sport now, they're there now that what I, so that, and I don't care, Ronnie. When that stuff happened at Toledo, I was 26 years old. Dude, I wouldn't have it any other way. That changed my entire life. That took me on a different trajectory that I wouldn't. I mean, thank goodness it did. Right? It made me rely so much more on him than I was trying to rely everything on myself. And he quickly showed me that was never. I can go down that road for the rest of my life, and I was going to be that guy that everything was. Like I tried to do it all on my own, and it wasn't going to work. I had to put my faith in him. So I don't like, I'm so thankful that happened. But yeah, man, there was always going to be these kids, and I say kids because I'm like, man, when you're 20 years old and you have what you have, I will say when it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I actually fished a tournament without the worry of the entry fee. And what I mean by that is like there were so many times I used to say, I used to put rent money up in college to fish tournaments. I do not recommend that to anyone. That was, and I didn't even
betting on yourself to a T.
I did it all the time. And I looked at, I was always going, man, I can't have a bad 6 months. I have a bad 6 months, I'm done fishing. And I lived that way for years. And that was hard. And then there were these other people that are just like, I'm just going fishing today. I'm gonna get my $50,000 rig, $80,000 rig, and I can do this 5 days a week. And I looked at them and I was like, that's not what I'm doing. However, the start of this conversation, I guess we can end it. I look at it now and I'm like, yeah, man, when's your day off? Well, I have days off, but for the most part, I'm on vacation and we're having a podcast because I still made a YouTube video yesterday during my vacation. I'm probably going to make one tomorrow. I'm probably going to, it's what I do anyways. And I don't know anything different. So, yeah. All that stuff about, that's just an excuse. It is excuses for people.
Yes.
You don't have to be I've learned, look, it's taken me a long time, except the fact that my wife asked me the other day if y'all did something different to the opens or she's like, would you ever go try it again? I'm like, maybe. And I was like, but it's not I figured out that I don't need that to do it. I still want to at times. Then there's other times I'm sitting there with my kids and doing other things. I'm like, this is pretty fun too.
Yeah. No, that's the way I looked at it. Was people always asking, we
talked about this, me and you, about what you're doing now.
Yeah, like I got the job with Bass as a freelancer when I was a junior in college. So I immediately went to online classes and then went my senior year all online, and I fished in college. And when I wasn't fishing a college event, I was at an elite event or an open covering it. And so I never got the chance to like do the opens, like when I graduated, try to do that. And so I even had a memory come up of me and Mike Corbishley, one of my college teammates who just won an NPFL event at Hartwell. And like we were holding up 4 good ones, and we made the championship qualification at Pickwick offshore fishing, and the memories that came with it. And it was like, man, I felt like I could have did it. I felt like I didn't, but I didn't know because until I bought my first good truck, I had to borrow Dad's truck, and I had to borrow Dad's 18-foot Ranger to fish in college. And I remember my senior year, I had a freshman with me, Brian Buffalo. Shout out to Brian. We were sitting at Hartwell on the Georgia side at the takeoff of an FLW tournament, and he looked around and there was so many rigs, tricked out trucks and boats. And he was like, wow. And I was like, what? He's like, those are some nice boats. And I said, we're going to beat 90% of them today. And we got 12th out of 150. And I was like, we did it. Thank God we did. If we would have finished last, I'd have been like, yeah, it was the truck and boat that made the difference. But no, like it's just a different, I don't know what I would have done. I would have had to buy a boat, which I did. I still have that boat. It's for sale if someone wants it, because I no longer tournament bass fish. But I find my value in who the Lord says that I am, and spending time with my girls. And I got another one on the way. We'll figure out in September when this elite season's over, you know, if it's a boy or girl or whatever, when we deliver it. And I realize now the Lord has shown me I wasn't made to be a Bassmaster Elite Series pro, not because of the skill, but because of the path. If I was doing that, I wouldn't be there for my wife, and I'd miss the moments with my daughter. Even if I was still on the road traveling for the elites, I'd be gone for a week or two. I'm home. I work all day. I come in, you know, when Marlo goes down for a nap on my day off, I come up here for 5 hours and work. That's not to toot my horn on how hard I work. It's I love this sport. I love what we do. This is my calling and how my motivation to provide for my family. And so I'm using this because the Lord's given it to me. And until he takes it away, I'm going to fight for it, because it pays the way. That's why when people say you get so offended and salty about MLF, if they got their way, when the split happened, I would be out of a job and I would not know what I'd be doing to provide for my family. I take offense to that. And so I work hard to make bass better, not to get even. I make us to be best as we can be. So that's why I bring it as much as I can on live. That's why I run, you know, the video. That's why we do things. That's why we have so many other ventures, so that I can provide for my family. And maybe one day someone will look at Marlo and be like, I didn't have it as nice as you have it now. Now I'll make her earn it, but hopefully one day she's not without, but she knows how to handle being with. You know what I'm saying? She doesn't have to worry about that, because you struggling and me borrowing boats and things like that.
Best thing ever.
We could have given up at any point. But if we were given that and it got hard, we'd for sure give up. But when it's hard and you want it so bad, you're going to figure out a way to ration off. I ended college fishing with $14 in my bank account, and I wish I would have spent those $14 on like a pack of lures. Like I had just a little bit left in the tank. Like we gave it our all. And then you pivot to something else. And so, no, knowing that you have the ability to make the elites, and I have the desire to do that, but now I know it's for a better purpose. I am meant to be home so that my family can see Dad, love the Lord, provide for the family, and not miss anything. This place keeps me busy a bunch. There's never been a moment where Tommy or Mike or Bowman were like, you can't go to the doctor's appointment to be there with your. Nope. I don't miss anything, and yet we work way more than we probably should, you know, but like I still don't miss, because it's just a balance. So
yeah, I miss some sports stuff, but
you make a lot more than you did before, though, when you were traveling the tour, no doubt.
Well, there was a lot of travel. It's a different type of travel now, but I mean, I miss some of their stuff on the weekends. But then I'm going, I don't see any, no offense to some of the other dads, but I mean, just about every day I'm out there practicing with my kids, like spending hours with my kids doing whatever, here and there.
You don't see the game day, but you trust in there. Yeah.
I miss some of the game. I mean, I'm making them all now, as of right, but I mean, I miss some of the game days. I travel a lot from fishing tournaments. See, I couldn't have done that because they're not so far away that I can't get done with the tournament. I don't know how many times I leave on a Saturday and then still make it for a Sunday event or something like that. But yeah, I mean,
there's just nothing that beats a dad being there for their child in a moment like that, where all the hard work gets to come out. Like Patrick or Patrick's dad, Todd, and his mom showing up for the weigh-ins for the Elite Series events. They have the ability to do that. That is the coolest thing ever, to know that old Todd is supporting his son, winning tournaments and doing well. Because I remember even soccer or basketball, it would be the sharpest, loudest whistle. You know, my dad would whistle and say something. I don't even have to look. I heard the whistle and he said something, and I knew my dad was there, and I knew that he was rooting me on. And it clicked for me when I was a little kid of the presence of your parents in your life. Was I was playing soccer, and I really, before basketball and fishing, like I thought I was going to play college soccer. Like I was very good at travel soccer, across the state, across other states, the Mid-Atlantic. I played soccer.
That's all I do now, apparently.
So I was in love with soccer, and I remember one time my dad whistled, and I looked over, and I'm about to do a corner kick, and he said, "Shoot for the goal." Like it was we were struggling. Maybe my teammates weren't capitalizing on my passes, and they didn't score, and nobody was scoring. And he looked at me and was like, sometimes you just got to put the team on the back. And he just looked at me and was like, shoot for the goal. Don't shoot for the good pass. Shoot for the goal. And on the corner kick, I kicked it and bent that like Beckham, and it went top shelf in the net, and we scored, and we won 1-0. But I remember when my dad whistled, looked me in the eyes across the field and said that, knowing he had confidence that I could do it because I'm in the backyard every night playing, practicing. And I did it. I'm listening to you, Dad. And so he's like, be patient. When all the crowd dissipates, you'll be able to meet Tommy and Zona. I promise. Crowd dissipates. I meet Tommy and Zona. I tell him I'm going to work with them one day, at the Classic in 2010 when KVD won. We're at the BJCC right there in Birmingham. We have that moment. He tells me, be patient. It'll work out. And then it works out. And now I'm working here, and I'm like, I just want to have those moments with my daughter, my son in the future, something like, you can do it. You just gotta know when to run, when to walk, when to be patient.
And it's weird too, because growing up, you look at some of those. So I have a different, so that first open on Toledo, they were in 2010. They were traveling from one thing to the other, and all of them fished the opens. There was 208 guys in that open, which I know now is not a big deal, but then 40 or 50 elite guys showed up for this event. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm one of the youngest guys in the event, because like back then there was almost no one in their 20s fishing an open. It just wasn't.
The information was gate kept. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And so I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting in line, and I just remember like Clun was in front of me, and there was a lot of elite guys just around, but Clun was in front of me. And a buddy, someone called, and they're like, I was like, so-and-so, man, there's a lot of elite guys here from this one. I'm like, yeah, Clun. They're like, did you talk to Clun? I'm like, no. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you didn't say nothing? I'm like, what am I going to say to him? I'm fishing against him. I'm not saying nothing to him. Like he wasn't a fan. Like I wasn't a fan of him. Not nothing against Clun. Like I wasn't a fan. Like,
yeah, I'm not here to get autographs. I'm here to get a check.
Yeah, like I might not fish tomorrow. I might not fish anymore. Like I had other thoughts on my mind, but I did look up to those guys, and like, in the Zona and the Van Dam, like they were kind of, even Clun, like they were a little bit untouchables, right? And then all of a sudden I kind of get with Strike King and this and that, and then, now, like, Kevin calls me up. I'm like, hey, Kevin, and then we're talking about like stuff for work. And then I was texting Zona 2 days ago. I was like, hey, Zona, I got your trip planned. Like I got to talk to him at ICAST because I got a show for him. But that's kind of where I'm at now. Like Hackney calls me, like I'm friends with a lot of these guys. I don't really realize it until now. Like it didn't make me think of it until you're like, hey, the dust will clear and you'll see Zona and Tommy and all them, I wasn't thinking that 10 years ago that I'm going to be kind of friends with those guys, working at Strike King, doing this, doing that. Like I was like, oh, I kind of have the coolest job in the world. No offense to all those guys fishing the elites. I kind of make my own schedule. I get to produce baits for Strike King. I get to go, well, what are you going to fish this year? Well, I might fish some opens. I might fish some Toyotas. I might go try to fish all the opens next year.
Sounds like freedom. You got freedom,
big time.
And that's what I would have died to have Zona and Tommy's phone numbers as a kid. And then the first year I started working with Bass and I got their numbers, I was like, I'm not going to text them ever.
No, I know.
But then they text me and they like need something, and I come through with them. Like, I don't know how many times Zona's texted me, hey, do you have so-and-so's phone number? And I text him back immediately. He's like, thanks, bud. And I was like, no problem. And I like did that. Hopefully earn their trust. Did that. And that's why you work when no one else is working. The other thing, but it's in the midst of live scope drama, in the midst of, you know, conflicting tour schedules in the midst of this, you know, young generation. Don't forget the interactions you have. That's what I love about the sport. And so that's why I get disappointed sometimes, not in how tournaments are won, but how we handle ourselves in those tournaments. And so it's, who knows? I'm turning 31 this year or this week, and I don't know how long I'll be doing this forever. You know, like I thought Tommy would retire long ago, so I could have done this, but now he's gonna do it till he's 100, so I'll never get to do it. No, and it's one of those things of like, I don't know how long I'll do it in this sport. Is whenever the Lord calls me to the next thing, I know He provided this avenue, and so He'll provide the next one, and it'll be so clear. Especially if I'm in the Word and I'm praying and we have a conversation daily, multiple times. If I'm in tune with Him, I will know when it's my time, and I'll be at peace that I gave my everything to the sport, and then it wasn't. You know, who knows?
Well, that's what, and we can go after this, but that's why I don't sweat. Like I don't sweat the elites, or I don't sweat any of that anymore. Like I don't. It's a great relief that I don't sweat. So many of those guys like that are fishing the BPT or even fishing the elites, there's 10 guys maybe not fishing the elites next year, right? There's guys everywhere like worried about next year. And I'm over here going, I'm worried about, you know, later on to go, when are we going to eat dinner here in a second? And because some of that stuff, I don't worry about it. And for the future. Right. I mean, I don't know what tournaments I'm fishing next year. Don't care. It'll be all right. I'll make it. Because I mean, like you said, he's that relief of that of not having to. He'll show me real quickly, and so I just follow.
It's just a weird. It's a weird balance of. It's biblical not to just like, oh, be obedient and patient and wait on God and you just sit there and wait. No, He wants us to do and be active. We do, and then it's clear that we go left or we go right or we go this.
I always say like,
so we have to
opening and closing doors are easy in the sense of you just got. I mean, I just work as hard as I possibly can, and then they're like, well, what are you going to do 3 years from now? Will you be doing? Man, some random person might be like, dude, I want you to do tons of podcasts. I might be doing that, you know, like, I don't know. And if, trust me, if that's not there, it's because he never opened that door. And I'm like, yeah, he didn't want me to go that route. No big deal.
Yeah.
But I'll keep on like,
it's a weird piece. If you have peace, then you're not just accepting what comes your way, but it's understanding that it's not everything is a forever, not every, you know, it's, and so, no, it's
Ronnie, I was never doing YouTube ever. Ever.
Me running YouTube channel? No shot.
No. The last thing I thought YouTube, I thought people who shared information on YouTube and how they did it and why I thought all of it was, I was the biggest anti-person against YouTube and all that stuff. And I still, like I said,
if your secrets are easily given up on YouTube, then you were probably thinking, then they're not even worthy of being secret. Your ultimate jig 101 is not actually 101 if you're willing to give it away on YouTube. And so
there's so much about it. And then why I do it is probably, I mean, but it doesn't really matter. I've figured it out, but I've always said, I still think I could have the biggest YouTube channel in the country. No doubt. I would probably be the most hated person in fishing. I would have a blast and it would be great, but and I would never do it. But that's why I will say the YouTube, like it makes me feel really good when certain people text me about even like if you did or something like. Mercer texts me.
I commented on yours the other day when you were poking the fire, and I was like, Todd,
well, Mercer texted me a couple of months ago, and he was like, hey man, I know you don't, I know we've never spoke to each other and this, but thank you for doing that video. It was about something else, and I'm like, yeah man, no problem. And I showed it to my wife, and because she could care less most of the time, she doesn't like how I comment back to people who comment, and I'm like, hey, it's my channel, they're not going to get away with this stuff. I'm going to comment back to some of them because I'm really sarcastic. But I said, hey, man, getting text messages from some of these guys that are within the business, I said, I'm really glad that those guys will just that. I said, I'm proud of that because I want to make sure that those guys, I want the respect of them first, to where some guys aren't like, oh, he's just doing that for whatever. It's like, hey man, he's being as truthful as he can. He's being honest about the sport. He's not trying to do it for clip. You know, the other one was a parody. That's different. But he wasn't serious about it. There's guys out there serious about what I was saying. That's why I made fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I want some of those guys, like I'm trying to be as truthful and open about what really bass fishing is. So, because I think people still have a skewed version of it. But anyways, that's pretty cool when I get a message from y'all. Is great.
Of course. And that's, I always think about the definition of the Elite Series. It's the best fishermen in the world. And then I think, well, there's guys who are probably dominating the BFLs at their home that aren't on the elites. So what it actually is, it's the best fishermen in the world willing to sacrifice comfort to do this for a living, because there are guys who would do that and be good enough to make the elites, but they like being home with their family. They don't want to miss things at home. They like the security of their factory job or coaching football at the high school for, you know, Monday through Friday, whatever. And so it's, if you're willing to be okay being uncomfortable, there are guys, Trey Swindle, the way he said it on the stage at Eufaula, he wants to be a pro so bad, and he was glad he made a top 10 at Eufaula, Oklahoma, because it gave him enough money to be able to go to St. Clair. And people think that you're just rich or this is this or that. You don't know, like literally Cliff Prince having his toughest season ever. And I kept saying this over and over again on Wheeler when we're talking, like, or when we're doing the show. And the moment you're about to quit, and the moment you're about to give up, the moment you think it's all lost, your biggest breakthrough happens. Your biggest break every time. And so it's that fear and security of wanting to be, loving being the local hammer and having comfort and security here, and the uncertainty of, I could go do this and be one of the 10 guys cut next year. I don't want that. And so you never do it, and you always wonder. And so for those 20-year-olds that are coming out of college that are ate up with it, and they are putting in the work, like we were talking about earlier, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work. That's what we're seeing with this young generation coming in and beating your idols that have the knowledge and they have the technology. These kids just have limited knowledge and the technology, and they're beating it. So they automatically say the technology devalues knowledge. No, knowledge makes you complacent at times. Well, and you get a little comfortable, like you said. You stop working as hard. Maybe you picked up sponsors and you can't go pre-fish all these lakes. How do you want your 50 grand? Do you want your 50 grand from a company, or do you want it in 5 Elite Series checks, or do you want it in 1 Elite Series win? How do you want your 50 grand? Do you want more freedom and time and less security of paychecks, but you go catch them? Or do you want to make 0 checks this year, knowing you still have the sponsor dollars? Or do you want to take no excuses, work a little harder, do the expos and the meet and greets for your sponsors, and put in the work, and you're the best of all time? Like that's how you gotta equip a team. Sherry kept KVD straight on all of his business so he could keep the fishing straight.
Yeah, but listen,
you gotta balance it, or be okay with being 80th, but being really good in sponsors' minds, or be okay with being 5th and Jacob Fouts not having sponsors. Like you just got to be okay.
And I'll be honest with you too. I mean,
sorry, Jacob, you're having a great year, but you're the one who come to mind when you're talking about that.
Well, yeah, and when you say all that, like doing the sponsor stuff, doing that, some of them don't have to worry about any of it. I mean, let's just throw that. Some of them have the luxury of not having to worry about money ever. But either way, I will say that, like, you can see all of that, and you didn't mention one thing. When you're on the road, when you go get a house and it's yours, and coming home to your house, right? And then you come home, like we talked half the time about our family and our kids. You do all that, go out there and try to find a girlfriend. Right?
There's sacrifice in relationships to be on the road, no doubt. Nobody wants to date a stinky 22-year-old bass fisherman trying to make it work and living in his truck. No, but they can do their family later because they're going out.
Go talk to my wife's dad when I had a conversation with him. He was like, "So how do you plan on taking care of my daughter?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
I'm gonna give it my best.
It'll work. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I've been doing it for 10 years and I somehow still am alive. I don't know, but it'll work. And now he, you know, me and him are so cool, but we were always cool. But yeah, to most people, they're like, what do you do? Okay, well, like this isn't really how I had my daughter thought about how she would be growing up with this guy, you know.
Hey, Sarah was supposed to be the breadwinner of our family. She was going to go to school and be a PA, and we had life happen, and she ends up being a stay-at-home mom. Who would have thought that fishing would pay for our bills and stuff? So I'm working somebody said that. Somebody walked by, you know, Bowman has his discipleship group Monday nights here. And so I'm here. Mondays are normally the day off because we just did live for 4 straight days. So we get Monday off. So I came in Monday at noon. I didn't work a full day, but I was up here. And one of the guys in his discipleship group walked by and said, he leaned in and said, "Are you the only one who works here?" I said, "Oh, no, sir." And he's like, "You're the only one who's here at 5 o'clock on Mondays when I come." And I was like, well, I said, if you're not where you want to be yet, you got to work as hard as you can to get to where you want to be. And I said, I'm not where I want to be yet. So I'm working hard to get to where I want to be. And so he laughed and kept walking. But it was a big compliment, but also the understanding of like, I was a 20-something-year-old that jumped in on Bass Live. There could be another 20-year-old that could come in and take my job. So yeah. No one's going to know the stats like me, the history. No one's going to know the technology on how to do it. No one's going to know these things. I'm always trying to find a way to provide value. And so that's why I'm like, all my buddies are, you're so lucky you got called by Bass to work with them. I was lucky for the day they called me. And I've had to hump it the rest of this time to make sure no one was coming behind me. To make sure second string is as far back as possible, or fourth string is behind third string, so back there.
That's how I felt with Live Scope. I did there. I was like, man, I don't have the luxury of
back and talk about the winners, or you could be a winner.
Correct.
I just get to be both. I feel like a winner, and I get to talk about the winners. So it's a match made in heaven.
Well, I don't want to keep you too long. I'm gonna get back to doing your thing.
Hey, enjoy your vacation, man. I'm glad we got to do this.
Yep, I'll see you. Hold on.